welcome to Sri Lanka Morning Show. Ayubowan.
සරයක සිරි පිරෙන රන් කිරුළු දිනා දේශය සරසන ඔබ හායන ගමනේ සවියක් වීනදී අපගේ හදින් නැගෙන සුබ පැතුමයි මේ ඔබ හායන ගමනේ
Good morning. My name is Tissa. I am a neurologist from Melbourne, Australia. Thank you very much for watching this segment on brain health for all, and thank you very much for your feedback on the program and questions also. As promised, today I am going to talk more about stroke prevention or preventing stroke in the first place. Further tips on primary prevention of stroke. During the previous program, we talked about secondary prevention of stroke also. Last week, we talked about the importance of blood pressure and control of blood pressure. There is another silent killer, not dissimilar to blood pressure, that is very harmful for us, that is blood sugar. We all know that sugar is important for us, but at the right amount. If the sugar level in your blood goes up or go higher than what it should be, which most of our viewers, specifically once they pass the age of 50, is experiencing already, is a condition that is known as diabetes or pre-diabetes, when the blood sugar is becoming closer to diabetes range. So high blood sugar is also a silent killer. Sometimes you can have high blood sugar not knowing for years before it cause symptoms. So increased blood sugar level also a risk factor for stroke. Very important to keep your blood sugar levels within normal limits to prevent you from having a stroke. Equally, the cholesterol level. There are two types of cholesterol in our body. There is a thing called good cholesterol, which is known as HDL cholesterol, and bad cholesterol, which is known as LDL cholesterol. Think of these two things as a vehicle that is removing fat from places where it should not be staying to places where it should be getting out of your body. That's your HDL cholesterol. LDL cholesterol is the other way around. It takes fat from places where it should be to places where it should not be. So it brings fat to the underneath surface of your blood vessels compared to other places where the excess fat or bad fat can be removed from your body. So these days we can check these cholesterol levels. Very important to increase our good cholesterol level but decrease or reduce our bad cholesterol level. Again, while it is important to cut back red meat and high fat diet, if your cholesterol level is high, you probably need to go on a medication to reduce your cholesterol level. So maintaining controlled cholesterol levels help you to reduce your risk of having a stroke as well. The other important thing is sleep. At least good, decent 6.5 hours of sleep is very important for our brain to get rid of all the waste products that we produce on a day-to-day basis. As you know, your brain is at work even during sleep. That's how you experience dreams. Because of that, the brain produces a lot of waste products. To get rid of them, it is very important for us to have a decent sleep, at least good 6-7 hours of sleep. Having a sleep disorder such as obstructive sleep apnea, frequent snoring, stopping your breathing at night time, these things also disrupt your sleep. All these things increase your risk of having a stroke. So having a good sleep hygiene, not having a sleep disorder, or if you do have a sleep disorder, treating that appropriately would reduce your risk of having a stroke as well. The other important thing is food. Not eating plenty of fruits and vegetables. We are supposed to eat at least 5 portions of fruits and vegetables in small quantities on a daily basis. If we are not doing that, we increase our risk of having a stroke. So having a healthy diet is very important to prevent or reduce your risk of having a stroke. So thank you for watching, and let me wish you all the very best. Stay safe, stay well, take care until we meet again with yet another program of brain health in a future program. Take care.
Welcome to another episode of Fascinating World of Birds. We have been so grateful to hear your positive remarks in the past few weeks about our program, and to hear about our viewers getting more and more engaged with birdwatching, nature conservation, and in general to hear about the great interest in sustainability and preserving our Earth. Joining with us again today to discuss a new bird species is Chanith. Welcome, Chanith.
Thank you again for having me.
So, Chanith, what bird species will you be talking to us about today?
Well, today it'll be multiple species, in fact, because I'm going to be talking to you about the crows and ravens you can find in Victoria.
Wonderful. So, where can you find these birds in Victoria?
Now, that depends on the particular species. The little crow is found only in the area of Mildura. The forest raven inhabits, as the name suggests, forests, mostly along the southwestern coast, but in some areas around the southeast as well. The Australian raven is found basically anywhere outside of Melbourne itself, and the little raven is widespread throughout the state.
Now, you've mentioned a wide list of bird species. Are any of these bird species facing threats of being endangered due to habitat loss?
Not particularly. They're all reasonably common in the right places.
So would you mind elaborating to us about their behaviours?
Well, sure. The main thing I'd like to mention about these birds is that they're a bit of a bane for bird watchers throughout the state, because they're all notoriously difficult to tell apart. The little raven, despite what the name suggests, is not actually that much smaller than every other one of the corvids, and they all look roughly the same. So I'm mostly going to be telling you about a few tips and tricks you can use to tell apart each one. Now,
Of
the
course.
Australian raven is a countryside bird, so it's quite uncommon in Melbourne, but it does occur. Now, the main thing with the Australian raven is it has a heavy beard of hackles. Now, the little raven does have hackles, which are a sort of outcropping of feathers around the throat, but they're much more pronounced in Australian raven, and when it calls, the hackles will droop downwards. In a forest raven, the forest raven itself is much bigger than the other ravens and has a massive beak. I like to think sometimes a beak like a steak knife. Now, the little crow, because of how range restricted it is, it's likely to be not that relevant to most bird watchers I'm talking to here. But if you do keep an eye out for it, it's got a long tail, a bit of a larger head, and a very lanky, skinny body. And additionally, in wind, the bases of its feathers blow back to show a white undercoat.
So you've said that many of these birds share some similarities. For keen bird enthusiasts who are trying to spot these birds out in the wild, or in our cities even, what type of equipment would they need to have with them?
Well, really, the main thing when it comes to these birds is good ears, because all those factors I just mentioned, they're pretty subjective, really. The only really strong objective way to differentiate them is the call. The little raven has a sort of nasal cawing call. The Australian raven, however, is long and drawn out. I like to think like a little raven that's been chain smoking for many years. It's a very rasping, dry call. The forest raven, on the other hand, it's the biggest raven, so I think it's got a buff, sort of deep, growly voice. So the call is very deep. It's much deeper than the other two ravens. And the little crow, again, not that relevant in most parts of Victoria, but it's got a very clipped, a short call. And I only actually heard that for the first time last weekend, as that's when I saw my first little crow.
Wow, so fairly recent.
Yes, they're a pretty tricky bird to come by in Victoria, if not in the right spot.
Yeah. So for our viewers at home who want to be more familiar with the bird calls and the sounds they make, what types of resources would you recommend for them to utilize?
Well, some of those apps I mentioned earlier, the field guide apps, do come with call recordings. Additionally, there are websites on the net which you can find which have massive databases of calls. I find often that these are much more accurate than some of the field guides, as they have a wider variety, as basically everyone just uploads their own recordings to them. But a mix of both. Additionally, even the written field guides have sort of rough phonetic spellings of how the calls would go out, which the accuracy can vary.
That is so interesting, Chanith, and I'm sure it'll be very useful for our viewers at home to understand too. Once again, we thank you for your time to come out here and tell us all about your wonderful bird species.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, that brings us to the end of today's segment. Join us again next time as we discuss yet another fascinating bird species. Thank you.
Abacus Solar, latest and reliable solar systems, world best panels and inverters, price beat guarantee, supervised system installation, excellent after sales service. Call 1300 852 843.
Rosewood Downs Excellence in Aged Care, a modern purpose-built home available in single and double rooms with ensuite and telephone in every room. Contact Ruben and Christine on 9701 3234.
Sanji Caldera Associates. With our headquarters based in Melbourne, Australia, you can locate our branch offices in Sri Lanka, Dubai, Canada and London, UK. Some of our services include skilled migration visa, family migration visa, employer sponsorship visa, temporary resident visa, business visa, tourist visa, student visa, administrative appeals tribunal review. Pursuit of excellence through tailored solutions.
The science of life, traditionally known as the Ayurveda. Consultations, diagnosis and treatments are done by fully qualified Ayurvedic practitioner Dr. Sam Dasanai. Sahandro Ayurvedic Center, best wellness experience.
News Weekly is brought to you by Esden, the horse specialist. Esden Plastics Private Limited, 525 to 527 Hammond Road, Dandenong South.
අයිබෝවන් සතියේ ප්‍රධාන ප්‍රවෘත්ති ප්‍රකාශය සමගින් මම තුෂාර ප්‍රනාන්දු. මුලින්ම අවධානය ප්‍රධාන ප්‍රවෘත්ති සිරස්තල වෙතට. කැපකිරීම් සිදු කිරීමට සූදානම් විය යුතුයයි IMF විධායක අධ්‍යක්ෂක කියයි. ජනපති නිදහස් සැමරුමේ වියදම් කපයි. කුමන ක්‍රමයකින් හෝ මද්‍රව්‍ය ව්‍යාප්තිය පාලනය කරන බව මහජන ආරක්ෂක අමාත්‍ය ටිරාන් අලස් කියයි. ආර්ථිකය පුනර්ජීවනය කිරීමට සිදු කරන ප්‍රතිසංස්කරණ කඩිනම් කිරීමට සහ දුෂ්කර අවස්ථාවන්හිදී සිදු කරන බදු වැඩි කිරීම ක්‍රියාත්මක කිරීමට ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ නායකත්වය විසින් ප්‍රදර්ශනය කරන දේශපාලන අධිෂ්ඨානය ඉතා අගය කළ යුතු බව ජාත්‍යන්තර මූල්‍ය අරමුදලේ විධායක අධ්‍යක්ෂ ආචාර්ය ක්‍රිෂ්ණමූර්ති සුබ්‍රමණියන් මහතා පවසනවා. ජාත්‍යන්තර මූල්‍ය අරමුදල් සහන පැකේජයට ශ්‍රී ලංකාව විසින් සපුරාලිය යුතු අවශ්‍යතා සියල්ලම පාහේ සම්පූර්ණ කර ඇති බවයි ඔහු පැවසුවේ. ප්‍රධාන ණයදෙන රටවල අවසාන සහතික කිරීම් සිදු කිරීමෙන් අනතුරුව අදාළ ක්‍රියාවලිය අවසන් වනු ඇති බවද ජාත්‍යන්තර මූල්‍ය අරමුදලේ විධායක අධ්‍යක්ෂ ආචාර්ය ක්‍රිෂ්ණමූර්ති සුබ්‍රමණියන් මහතා පෙන්වා දෙනවා. ඒ අග්‍රාමාත්‍ය කාර්යාලයේදී අග්‍රාමාත්‍ය දිනේෂ් ගුණවර්ධන මහතා හමු වූ අවස්ථාවේදී ආර්ථික අභියෝගවලට මුහුණ දීම සඳහා දේශීය ඉල්ලුමට සරිලන පරිදි අපනයන වෙනුවෙන් කෘෂිකාර්මික නිෂ්පාදන ඉහළ නැංවීමට රජය ගෙන ඇති පියවර පිළිබඳ එහිදී අග්‍රාමාත්‍යවරයා විසින් ජාත්‍යන්තර මූල්‍ය අරමුදලේ විද්‍යාක අධ්‍යක්ෂකවරයා දැනුවත් කළ බවයි අග්‍රාමාත්‍ය කාර්යාලය පැවසුවේ. ණය ප්‍රතිව්‍යුහගත කිරීමට සහ ආර්ථික පුනර්ජීවනය කිරීමට සැලසුම් කිරීමේදී ආර්ථික වශයෙන් අවදානමට ලක්විය හැකි කණ්ඩායම් සඳහා ආරක්ෂිත දැලක් අත්‍යවශ්‍ය වන බව ආචාර්ය ක්‍රිෂ්ණමූර්ති සුබ්‍රමණියන් මහතා පෙන්වා දෙනවා. රාජ්‍යාංශයට අවම වශයෙන් වැටුප් සහතික කර ඇති නමුත් තවත් බොහෝ දෙනෙකුට ආදායම් මාර්ග අහිමි වී ඇති බැවින් කැපකිරීම් සිදු කිරීමට සූදානම් විය යුතු බවද ඔහු වැඩිදුරටත් එහිදී ප්‍රකාශ කළ බවයි අග්‍රාමාත්‍ය කාර්යාලය පැවසුවේ. නිදහස් උළෙල සැමරීමට අවශ්‍ය වියදම් ඇස්තමේන්තුගත කිරීමේදී හා වියදම් කිරීමේදී රටේ වත්මන් මූල්‍ය තත්ත්වය පිළිබඳව අවධානය යොමු කිරීම දේශපාලන අධිකාරියේ සේම නිලධාරීන්ගේද වගකීමක් වන බව ජනාධිපති රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහතා පවසනවා.
කොහොමවත් දැනට මුදල් දෙන්න භාණ්ඩාගාරේ නැහැ. ප්‍රධාන එකට දීලා අපි බලමු භාණ්ඩාගාරේ කතා කරන්න. මොකද මිනිස්සුත් අපිට දොස් කියනවා විශේෂයෙන්ම විශාල මුදලක් වියදම් කරනවා නේද? අපේ තියෙන මුදල් තුලින් කරනවා නම් ඒක ප්‍රශ්නයක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඉතින් මං හිතන්නේ මේ දෙක මේ ලේකම්වරු දෙන්න එක්ක ඔයගොල්ලෝ සාකච්ඡා කරලා ඒ කාරණ දිහා බලන්න. නැත්තම් මේ තියෙන වැඩසටහන නම් හොඳයි. මං හිතන්නේ ඔය නිලධාරීන් හදන අවස්ථාවවලදී මේ එස්තමේන්තු දිහා බලන්න ඕනේ. මේ උත්සවයේ තියන්න ඕනේ. අපේ 75 වෙනි සංවත්සරය. අපි ඒක නොකරනවා නම් රටට හොඳ නෑ. දෙවනුව අපි මේක නෙකරුවොත් ලෝකේ කියයි අපිට මේක කරන්නත් සල්ලි නැති වුණා කියලා. අපිට ආයෝජකයන් ගන්න තියෙනවා, අපිට සංචාරකයෝ ගේන්න තියෙනවා. ඉතින් මේවට අපි දෙන්න ඕනේ හරි මේකක් අපි පෙන්වන්න ඕනේ. එහෙනම් වියදම් බොහෝ දුරට සීමා කළා අපි 75 වෙනි සංවත්සරේ කරමු.
විදුලි බල මණ්ඩලය නව ගාස්තු අය කරන ක්‍රමය ක්‍රියාත්මක කළ පළමු මාස 3ක කාලය තුළ රුපියල් බිලියන 108ක පමණ ආදායමක් ලබා ඇති බව පාර්ලිමේන්තු මන්ත්‍රී පාටිලි චම්පක රණවක මහතා පවසනවා. මන්ත්‍රීවරයා ප්‍රකාශ කළේ මූල්‍ය අර්බුදයක් හේතුවෙන් සහ පාඩු ලැබීම හේතුවෙන් අඛණ්ඩ විදුලි බල සැපයුමක් ලබා දීමට නොහැකි බවට සිදු කරන ප්‍රකාශ පිළිගත නොහැකි බවයි. කොළඹ පැවති සම්මන්ත්‍රණයට එක්වෙමින් පාර්ලිමේන්තු මන්ත්‍රී පාටලි චම්පක රණවක මහතා මෙම අදහස් පළ කළා.
මේ වසර සඳහා ජනවාරි 1 වෙනිදා ඉඳන් තවත් 60%කින් ලංකා විදුලි බල මණ්ඩලය වැය කරන්න යන්නේ කියන ගැටලුව තියෙනවා. මම මේ කිව්වේ කරුණු කීපයක් මේ ඇති වෙලා තියෙන විෂම චක්‍රය. ලංකා විදුලි බල මණ්ඩලය අකාර්යක්ෂමද? ලංකා විදුලි බල මණ්ඩලය මූල්‍යමය වශයෙන් තාක්ෂණික වශයෙන් අකාර්යක්ෂම ආයතනයක්. ඒක අපිට පිළිගන්න වෙනවා. ඒ වගේම මේ ලංකා විදුලි බල මණ්ඩලය පරිවර්තනය කරගන්න මම ඔබ හැමතෙම සේවකයින්ට කියන්නේ ඩයිනෝසර්වරු වඳ වී ගියා වගේ පවතින සමාජාත්මක තත්වයට අනුව වෙනස් නොවුනොත් මේ ඕනම විශාල ආයතනයක් වඳ වී යන නියමිතයි.
ජනාධිපතිවරයාට හිමි විධායක බලතල අනුව රටේ පවතින නීතිය ක්‍රියාත්මක කිරීමට තමන් බැඳී සිටින බව ජනාධිපති රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහතා පවසනවා. ජනාධිපතිවරයා අවධාරණය කළේ 13 වෙනි සංශෝධනය මුළුමනින්ම ක්‍රියාත්මක කිරීමට කටයුතු කරන්නේ ඒ අනුව බවයි. එසේ නොමැතිනම් පාර්ලිමේන්තුව හරහා 13 වෙනි ව්‍යවස්ථා සංශෝධනය අහෝසි කළ යුතු බවද ජනාධිපතිවරයා පවසනවා. 13 වෙනි සංශෝධනය අහෝසි කිරීම සඳහා ඕනෑම මන්ත්‍රීවරයෙකුට පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට පුද්ගලික මන්ත්‍රී යෝජනාවක් ඉදිරිපත් කළ හැකි වෙනවා. ඊට බහුතරය අකමැති වූහොත් සිදුවන්නේ එය ක්‍රියාත්මක කිරීම පමණක් බවද ජනාධිපති රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහතා සඳහන් කළා. කෙසේ වුවත් රට බෙදීමට කිසිසේ සූදානම් නැති බවත් කිසිවිටකත් සිංහල ජාතිය පාවාදීමට කටයුතු නොකරන බවත් ජනාධිපතිවරයා අවධාරණය කර තිබෙනවා. ඒ ජනාධිපති කාර්යාලයේ පැවති සර්වපාක්ෂික හමුව අමතමින්.
බැහැ. ඒ නීති සම්මත කරන එක පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ. මට තියෙන්නේ කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලයක සාකච්ඡා කරලා ඕන නීතියක් ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න. ඉදිරිපත් කරාන් පස්සේ ඔයගොල්ලෝ සම්මත කරනවද නැද්ද කියන පාර්ලිමේන්තු වැඩක්. මගේ වැඩේ තියෙන්නේ මේක පාර්ලිමේන්තු ඉදිරිපත් කරන එක විතරයි. ඔයගොල්ලන්ට වරම තියෙන්නේ මේ නීතිය සම්මත කරනවද නැද්ද කියන එක. මට වරම තියෙන්නේ නීතිය ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්න.
ආණ්ඩුවෙන් ඉවත් වූ ශ්‍රී ලංකා පොදුජන පෙරමුණේ පාර්ලිමේන්තු මන්ත්‍රීවරුන් 35 දෙනෙක් නියෝජනය කරන මෙවර පළාත් පාලන මැතිවරණයට හෙලිකොප්ටරේ ලකුණෙන් තරඟ කරන නිදහස් ජනතා සන්ධානය මැතිවරණ ප්‍රචාරණ කටයුතු කොළඹදී නිල වශයෙන් ආරම්භ කළා. එහිදී නිදහස් ජනතා සන්ධානය පළාත් පාලන මැතිවරණයේ තේමාව වන නිදහස් වෙමු යන තේමාව සහ එම පක්ෂයේ සමාජ මාධ්‍ය පිටුව සහ එහි ප්‍රතිපත්ති ප්‍රකාශ එළිදැක්වුවා. එහිදී නිදහස් ජනතා සන්ධානයට ඇතුළත් පක්ෂවල නායකයන් සහ නියෝජිතීන් ප්‍රතිපත්ති ප්‍රකාශ එළිදැක්වුවා. පාර්ලිමේන්තු මන්ත්‍රීවරුන් වන මහාචාර්ය ජී.එල්. පීරිස්, වාසුදේව නානායක්කාර, විමල් වීරවංශ, උදය ගම්මන්පිල, මහාචාර්ය චරිත හේරත්, අනුර ප්‍රියදර්ශන යාපා, ආචාර්ය නාලක ගොඩහේවා, ජයන්ත සමරවීර, වෛද්‍ය උපුල් ගලප්පත්ති, උදයන කිරිඳිගොඩ සහ ගාමිණී වෙලේගොඩ, නිදහස් ජනතා සන්ධානයේ ප්‍රධාන ලේකම් තිලංග සුමතිපාල සහ ශ්‍රී ලංකා කොමියුනිස්ට් පක්ෂයේ ප්‍රධාන ලේකම් වෛද්‍ය ජී වීරසිංහ යන මහතුරු ඇතුළු පිරිසක් මේ අවස්ථාවට සහභාගී වුණා. කුමන ක්‍රමයකින් හෝ මද්‍රව්‍ය ව්‍යාප්තිය පාලනය කරන බව මහජන ආරක්ෂක අමාත්‍ය ටිරාන් අලස් මහතා පවසනවා. කොළඹ පැවති මාධ්‍ය හමුවකට එක්වෙමින් අමාත්‍යවරයා පැවසුවේ මද්‍රව්‍ය ව්‍යාපාරය අත්හරින ලෙස තමන් මද්‍රව්‍ය ජාවාරම්කරුවන්ගෙන් ඉල්ලීමක් කරන බවයි. එමෙන්ම අමාත්‍යවරයා පැවසුවේ තමන්ගේ පෞද්ගලික මතය නම් මද්‍රව්‍ය මිනි මැරීම් සහ ස්ත්‍රී දූෂණ සඳහා මරණ දණ්ඩනය ක්‍රියාත්මක කළ යුතු බවයි. රජය විසින් පනවා ඇති ආදායම් බදු පනත අසාධාරණ බවත් එය වහා හකුලා ගන්නා ලෙසත් විවෘත විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයේ ආචාර්යවරුන්ගේ සංගමය කොළඹදී විරෝධතාවයක් පවත්වනු ලැබුවා. මෙම පනත හරහා සිදුවන්නේ විශ්වවිද්‍යාල ආචාර්යවරුන්ගේ වැටුප් මංකොල කෑමක් බව එහිදී ආචාර්ය මහිම් මෙන්ඩිස් මහතා වැඩිදුරටත් සඳහන් කළා. ජනවාරි මාසයේ ඇතැම් විශ්වවිද්‍යාල ආචාර්යවරුන්ගේ වැටුප් රුපියල් 0ක් වී ඇතැයිද සභාපති ආචාර්ය අතුල සිරි සමරකෝන් මහතා සඳහන් කළා. ඔවුන්ගේ ණය ගෙවා දැමූ පසු මාසික වැටුපට ඉතුරුවීමට දෙයක් නැති බවද ඔහු සඳහන් කළා. මේ අතර රජයේ නව බදු ප්‍රතිපත්තියට එරෙහිව වෘත්තීයවේදීන්ගේ වෘත්තීය සමිති එකමුතුව පසුගියදා ප්‍රකාශයට පත් කළ කළු සතිය විරෝධතාවයට අදාළව දිවයිනේ රෝහල් බැංකු සහ රාජ්‍ය ආයතන ඉදිරිපිට කළු කොඩි ප්‍රදර්ශනය කර තිබුණා. රජයේ නව බදු ප්‍රතිපත්තියට එරෙහිව ශ්‍රී ලංකා මහ බැංකු නිලධාරීන්ගේ සංගමය කොළඹ මහ බැංකුව අසලදී විරෝධතාවයක් පැවැත්වුවා. විරෝධතාකරුවන් ජනාධිපති ලේකම් කාර්යාලය දෙසට පාගමනින් යාමට උත්සාහ කිරීමේදී පොලිසිය ඊට අවසර නොදුන් අතර පසුව පිරිස ජනාධිපති මන්දිරය අසලදී සිය විරෝධය පළ කළා. නුදුරේදීම ජාතික ජනබලවේගයේ ආණ්ඩුවක් ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ පිහිටුවන නිසා රට අතහැර නොයන ලෙස වෘත්තීය වේදීන් ඇතුළු සියලු පාර්ශවවලින් ඉල්ලා සිටින බව එම පක්ෂයේ නායක පාර්ලිමේන්තු මන්ත්‍රී අනුර කුමාර දිසානායක මහතා සඳහන් කරනවා. ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ වෘත්තීය ශ්‍රම බලකාය 15% බවත් ඔවුන්ගේ වැටුපට ආණ්ඩුව විශාල බද්දක් පනවා ඇති බවත් ඔහු පවසනවා. දැනටමත් බැංකුවල ඉහළ කළමනාකරුවන් 500ක් රට හැර ගොස් ඇති බවත් අගෝස්තු මාසය වෙද්දී වෛද්‍යවරුන් 500ක් රට හැර දමා ගොස් ඇති බවත් හෙතෙම වැඩිදුරටත් පැවසුවා. ඒ මහතා මේ බව කියා සිටියේ ජාතික ජන බලවේගය විසින් සංවිධානය කරන ලද ජන හමුවක් අමතමින්.
ඉස්සරළම ආණ්ඩු උත්සාහ කරා පළාත් පාලන මැතිවරණය ප්‍රකාශයට පත් කිරීම වළක්වා ගන්න උත්සාහ කරා. ප්‍රකාශයට පත් කිරීම වළක්වා ගන්න බැරුණා ජනවාරි මාසේ 5 වෙනිදා ඡන්ද ප්‍රකාශ කරා. ඊට පස්සේ උත්සාහ කරා අප මුදල් බාර ගැනීම වළක්වා ගන්න. හැබැයි 2015 වෙනිදා ඉඳන් 20 වෙනකම් අප මුදල් බාරගත්තා. ඒක වළක්වා ගන්න බැරුණා. ඊළඟ උත්සාහ කරා නාම යෝජනා බාර ගැනීම වළක්වන්න. ඒක නේද ජනවාරි 18 ඉඳන් 21 දවල් වෙනකොට නාම යෝජනාවත් බාරගත්තා. ඊට පස්සේ උත්සාහ කරා ඡන්ද දිනේ ප්‍රකාශයට පත් කරන එක වළක්වා ගන්න. ජනවාරි මාසේ 21 වෙනිදා මාර්තු 9 කියලා ඡන්ද දිනේ ප්‍රකාශයට පත් කරා. ඡන්දේ තියෙන අධීර 5යි. ඡන්ද ප්‍රකාශයට පත් කිරීම, අප මුදල් බාර ගැනීම, නාම යෝජනා බාර ගැනීම, ඡන්ද දිනේ ප්‍රකාශයට පත් කිරීම, ඡන්දේ තිබීම. උත්තරයි. එනිසා දැන් නේද අවස්ථා 5න් 4ක්ම අවසන් එකයි තියෙන්නේ. ඒකත් නේද අකුලන්න බැරි වෙන බව අපිට සාධකයි. සැකයක් කියලා.
ගමක් පාසා නොනිදන සභාවක් නිර්මාණය කරන බවත් නොනිදන සභාවක් යනු දවසේ වැඩි කාලයක් ජනතාවට සේවය සඳහා කැපවන සභාවක් බවත් සමගි ජනබලවේගයේ නායක හා විපක්ෂ නායක සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාස මහතා පවසනවා. ඒ දෙහිඅත්ත කණ්ඩියේදී ජන හමුවක් අමතමින්. තම පියාවන හිටපු ජනාධිපති රණසිංහ ප්‍රේමදාස මහතා ජනාධිපති ජංගම සේවය ආරම්භ කළ බවත් ඒ ආකාරයෙන් තමන්ද පළාත් පාලන ආයතන ජංගම සේවයක් ආරම්භ කරන බවද හෙතෙම කියා සිටියා.
අරගලේ ඉල්ලීමක් තිබුණා. යොවුන් පරපුරට රටේ පාලන තන්ත්‍රයේ ඉඩක් ලබා දෙන්න. හණක් ලබා දෙන්න. අවස්ථාවක් ලබා දෙන්න. අපේ පක්ෂයේ තීන්දුවක් අරගෙන තිබෙනවා හැම ප්‍රාදේශීය සභාවකටම සූර්ය වැව ඇතුළුව හැම ග්‍රාම සේවා වසමක්ම නියෝජනය වෙන ආකාරයට ජාති ආගම් කුලමල පන්ති පක්ෂ ભેදෙන් තොරව තරුණ උපදේශක කණ්ඩායමක් අපි සභාවට පත් කරනවා.
මේ සමගින් අදට නියමිත සතියේ ප්‍රධාන ප්‍රවෘත්ති ප්‍රකාශය නිමවට පත්වෙනවා. මෙම ප්‍රවෘත්ති ප්‍රකාශය නැවත නැරඹීමට ශ්‍රී ලංකා Morning Show YouTube channel වෙතට යොමු වන්න. ඔබ සැමට සුවදායි සතියක්. ආයුබෝවන්. Abacus Solar, latest and reliable solar systems, world best panels and inverters, price beat guarantee, supervised system installation, excellent after sales service. Call 1300 852 843.
Rosewood Downs Excellence in Aged Care, a modern purpose-built home available in single and double rooms with ensuite and telephone in every room. Contact Ruben and Christine on 9701 3234.
Sanji Caldera Associates. With our headquarters based in Melbourne, Australia, you can locate our branch offices in Sri Lanka, Dubai, Canada and London, UK. Some of our services include skilled migration visa, family migration visa, employer sponsorship visa, temporary resident visa, business visa, tourist visa, student visa, administrative appeals tribunal review. Pursuit of excellence through tailored solutions.
The science of life, traditionally known as the Ayurveda. Consultations, diagnosis and treatments are done by fully qualified Ayurvedic practitioner Dr. Sam Dasanai. Sahandro Ayurvedic Centre, best wellness experience.
The segment that promotes Sri Lankan culture, diversity, nature and heritage is proudly sponsored by Prestige Wardrobe and Shower Screens. We bring you a special segment to promote Sri Lanka. A special thank you to Sandra and Estrid Jackson for providing us with this segment. next, Sri Lanka Morning Show would like to bring you a special segment to commemorate the independence of Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka, known as Tambapanni in ancient times, testifies a great civilization devoted to agriculture and religion over a period of over 2,500 years. In the 19th century, the British ruled over a pluralistic society with multi-ethnic and multi-religious groups. Sinhalese and Buddhists formed the largest groups with absolute majorities. The leaders of all ethnic groups fought on a common platform for constitutional reforms which made the British introduce universal suffrage in 1929. The final phase of the transfer of political power from British to Sri Lankan hands began under the leadership of Don Stephen Senanayake. Sri Lanka celebrated her independence on the 4th of February 1948. Right Honourable D.S. Senanayake became the first Prime Minister of independent Sri Lanka. He advocated a policy of restoring irrigation facilities and developing agriculture with community settlement projects for peace and harmony. He died while in office in 1952.
Hello everyone, I'm Norleen Hunter joining you again, this time from Melbourne, Australia. Welcome to Music Matters.
Someone taught me how to dance last night. What a mover he was. And someone taught me how to do it right. What a doer he was. We boogie and we bumped until we fish a jive. And when he gets me going, I don't want to stop. He said, dance it, lady, dance. Dance it, lady, dance. You know we've only got one chance. Come on, dance, 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 yeah.
Esrik, I know that you have been performing here for almost 35 or 36 years in Australia, or even more. And so you have a good knowledge of what is the music scene like here in Australia, in Melbourne especially. So, and you know that the present situation in Sri Lanka isn't very good. The economic crisis, that is now making people, mainly musicians, you know, who don't have much of a career there in Sri Lanka now. They are now deciding to come and settle down in Australia if possible. What do you think their chances are as a professional musician here in Australia?
To be honest with you, Noeline, it is a tough game. You know, music in Australia is very tough. Unless you have the capabilities of writing your own songs and coming up with
original music.
Original music, yeah, original music. I'm certain about 30 of the musicians in Sri Lanka, like, you know, you got Donald, Benji, you know, Joey,
yeah,
type people, you know, Rajita, another one that comes to mind, you know.
Yeah.
They are all excellent.
Top musicians.
Yeah, Corinne Almeida, great singers, you know, Melantha, people like
Yeah,
that,
and
you
the
know.
list goes on. There are so many.
The list goes on.
Yes.
They are all very, very high in music. They got to come up with originals, you know, and it
that is the only way that you make your mark on the music scene here.
In Australia, yeah. It is very tough. We have been, Replay have been fortunate, you know, like with what we do and what we did, you know, to be such a successful band among the Sri Lankan community in Australia, you know, because we never went that next step to get into the big scene, big time, as you call, because all had day jobs, you know, and they had good jobs, you know. So it was only like a hobby, like a thing that we played music. We enjoyed, you know, like the current band members in Replay. They have been with us, oh my God, David 50, Lindsay Gilman, the drummer, he's been about 25, 30 years.
Yeah.
Sonny, the keyboard player, he's been a long time with us. Cameron and Christo was with Replay, but they decided to go on their own and start up a band. And no, like, you'll always have that thing in bands, you know, where you can't, it's hard to keep a band together, but Replay, thank God, you know, have been successful in that aspect of it, you know, to keep the band together. And you get your knockers, you know, as usual. You get canned so badly, you know, sometimes, but then
you survive.
That's right, yeah. I always had this theory, myself and Sandra, to be honest, we always had the theory, we played for the people, we didn't play for ourselves, you know, like me, I am a great country and I can sing.
And you also have a country band, don't you?
Yeah, I play with a band called No Limit. You know, they're a good country band. Like, my liking for music is country music, you know. And when we came to Australia, you know, like, and we went to a place called Baruga in the country, and Lee Kernahan, one of the top country singers, you know, he was performing. He was nobody then, you know, and or he was not a big star then, you know. And my friends went and spoke to him and said, I've got a singer from Sri Lanka, he would sing a few songs. And I sang. When I got off the stage, he came and spoke to me, and he said, how long have you been here? I said, I just come only about 6 or 7 months, you know. He said, you should move to the country. You've got a great country voice. You'll make it big, you know. And, you know, as usual.
But you didn't really record any country music.
No, except for the one I wrote for Sandra. And there's some other songs that I got. It'll be coming out in short time, you know, just trying to.
Right.
Because, you know, as you know, I had to go through a bad time with my sickness, you know, that I recovered now. And that took a bit out of me, you know, to try to make a comeback.
I'm glad that God helped you to recover from that illness.
That's for sure, yeah. All the prayers and the mighty man up there. And you got to be positive with anything you do, you know.
That's true, yes.
So that way we have, you know, had a good, I can't say we had not done well. I reckon we have done very well. And as you know, when any Sri Lankan musicians come to Australia, coming to mind, we are back to you, we are back Corinne.
That's right. You have backed your band, and you all have backed me several times when I've performed in. I think every time I've performed.
Yeah, every time you come here, and you know, oh my God! And then the lovely time was when Mirage came, and then Aquarius, Benji's band.
Benji's band. And I remember just about 3 years ago when you had that anniversary show for Sandra.
Yeah.
That was a very successful concert, wasn't it? I performed on that as well.
That was good. Yeah. You thank God you were around and you managed to perform. And, you know, like that way, you know, like, and Channel 31 have been very supportive toward the band, you know. They play our clips almost every day, virtually. You know. Now it's become like every week because I sing with 3 bands, you know. And so we got the country band. And, we had a good country show just a few months ago
Right.
Bertie organized it. That was good.
You have people of other nationalities also in your band.
Yeah, Filipino, Mauritian, Anglo-Indians. You know, only 2 Sri Lankans in the band. The other boy who sings and is Mauritian. The other Sri Lankan singer is single his parents, but he's born in Australia, so he's like Australian, you know.
So thank you, Esrik, for joining me on this first program, the inaugural program of Music Matters, and we've really enjoyed our chat, I know, because you've given us a lot of information about yourself and your band. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Noeline, and a big thank you to Nimal and Sugita Alvis, who helped with this program to the Sri Lankans in Melbourne to enjoy. You know, that's one thing that I don't think in any part of the world it happens, you know, except in Melbourne. Because Nimal and Sugita, they keep this program running. And
yes, Nimal is a guy who's been associated with television from Sri Lanka, and I've worked with him in Sri Lanka at Rupavahini and also at ITN.
That's it.
So
yeah.
it's nice to work with him even here in Australia. So thank you once again.
Okay, thank you, Noeline. Take care.
And remember that you too can participate on the program with a question for our featured artist by emailing them to the address on the screen. Of course, the question you must email and send us your name as well. Thank you everyone for being a part of this inaugural program of Music Matters. We'll meet again soon. Until then, remember that music matters.
One heart, let's get together and feel alright. One love, one heart, give thanks and praise to the Lord, and I will feel alright. Let's get together and feel alright. Oh, let them all pass on this dirty remarks. There is one question I really love to ask. If there's a place for this hopeless sinner, for all mankind just to save its own, believe it. One love, oh Lord have mercy, one heart, let's get together and feel alright. Whoa, one love, one heart, give thanks and praise to the Lord, and I will feel alright.
Abacus Solar, latest and reliable solar systems, world best panels and inverters, price beat guarantee, supervised system installation, excellent after sales service. Call 1300 852 843.
Rosewood Downs Excellence in Aged Care, a modern purpose-built home available in single and double rooms with ensuite and telephone in every room. Contact Ruben and Christine on 9701 3234.
Sanji Caldera Associates. With our headquarters based in Melbourne, Australia, you can locate our branch offices in Sri Lanka, Dubai, Canada and London, UK. Some of our services include skilled migration visa, family migration visa, employer sponsorship visa, temporary resident visa, business visa, tourist visa, student visa, administrative appeals tribunal review. Pursuit of excellence through tailored solutions.
The science of life, traditionally known as the Ayurveda. Consultations, diagnosis and treatments are done by fully qualified Ayurvedic practitioner Dr. Sam Dasanai. Sahandro Ayurvedic Center, best wellness experience.
Good morning. Welcome to Sri Lanka Morning Show. Today we have with us Sanji Caldera, Principal Migration Agent of Sanji Caldera and Associates. Good morning, Sanjay.
Good morning, Sonari.
Today, I think we'd like to discuss a bit about migration and how it has changed post-COVID. Could you tell us a bit about that, please?
Yes, certainly it has changed post-COVID. And what has taken place is in the last 2 years, we have had much less people coming into Australia. This has created a vacuum. This has created a lot of skill shortages. So the government is taking some steps and really accelerating the general skill migration pathway. In fact, in December, they invited almost 35,000 people to apply for their migration to Australia. So the department is taking some very serious steps to increase the working population in Australia.
To make up for lost time.
That's correct, to really make up for lost time. Yes.
That's good news, I suppose, for people wanting to come to Australia from overseas. What are some of the categories that they could perhaps be successful in applying for, perhaps if they had the skills?
Yes, there are so many visa categories. Now, this is really the good time to apply for general skill migration. In the past, they were really restricted with quotas, and of course, COVID didn't allow any invitations to be extended to these potential applicants who want to come to Australia. But now, what the government is doing is giving generously, inviting these people, skilled people. There are no rule changes, but they're expediting the whole process so that to fill up the skill shortages in Australia.
Wonderful. I'm sure our audience would be very keen to know what some of those skilled categories might be.
Right. I have to admit that there are two main areas. I need to go back one step back and say there is the independent category, and we also have the state government sponsored category. So in Australia, as we know, we have the different states, they have their skill shortages, so they would have their own lists and own rules and regulations, but all leading to permanent residency. Now, as far as occupations are concerned, the required list is fairly lengthy. They're at all aspects of it. But if I am forced to name a few, accountants, chefs, network engineers, all IT professionals,
right,
and so forth, and all trade occupations, they are getting priority invitations.
Okay, well, that's good to know, Sanjay. And does that vary from state to state? Is that what you were saying previously?
That's correct. It varies from state to state, and the state government is giving opportunities for people who are already in Australia, the people who have studied here and who are working in their fields, but also they are having a very good quota for people from all over the world to come in to general skill migration.
That's really good to hear, Sanjay. And what about those students who are here already, but perhaps haven't finished their studies yet, but wish to remain in the country?
That's correct. So there has been certain times that the students may have got their studies interrupted because of COVID and for various reasons. Now, they have two options. One, if they have a long study period that they need to, they simply have to go and ask for an extension of their student visas. But there are some applicants who are running out of options, and the government has been very generous, and they have what we call the COVID 408 visa. When there's no other option, they could apply for that. But certainly for students who have completed 2 years, they have what we call the post-work stream visa. That is a visa that you get with work rights and where they get ready for permanent residency. But again, at the end of that, if they run out of options, there is the 408 COVID visa. So there are a lot of opportunities for students in Australia.
That's fantastic to hear. And what about students overseas who want to come here?
Certainly, the doors are open, and there is an influx of students coming to Australia. And again, the government is, the department is processing these visas very, very quickly, because the universities have been absolutely, they didn't have students for a very long time, and now all those universities are being filled up by overseas students. So there is plenty of opportunities for overseas students to come to Australia.
Isn't there a particular exam, an English language exam that students overseas are supposed to do before they come to Australia?
Yes, and in fact there are some new rules around English exam. For people who have studied in English, they don't have to study English in order to apply for a student visa.
Right.
But for the other students who have not studied if they have not had significant studies, then they need to do English, and it will depend what the score that they require will depend from the university to university and from the course to course. But the new rule for undertaking English, in the past it was always one sitting. You have to get the score one sitting. But again, we have some generous exemptions that should you miss out on, let's say, one element of the exam, there is 4 elements of all English exams, that you can resit and present that result, and that will be considered as they have achieved that result in one sitting.
That's fantastic. And that's the IELTS. The IELTS.
That is only applicable for the IELTS test. There are many other English tests, but that provision is only for IELTS.
And am I right to understand that if you have studied in English, you don't have to do this test?
Yeah, for students, if you have studied in English, you don't have to. But when it comes to general skill migration, you certainly have to undertake the English, unless and otherwise you hold a passport from certain countries like England or USA or in New Zealand.
That's very positive news. I'm sure our viewers today will very much benefit from the information you've shared with us today. Thank you so much, Sanji.
Thank you, Sunari.
We look forward to speaking to you again.
Thank you.
We have with us today Mr. Bertie Ekanayaka, entrepreneur, businessman, and most importantly, the man who brings entertainment to Melbourne. Welcome to the morning show, Bertie.
Thank you, Sally.
Bertie, we're here to talk about the Valentine's Day dance that you've run for over 20 years now.
That's right.
Can you just give us insight to the dance this year?
Yeah, this year's dance is a band coming from Sri Lanka called the Redeemers. It's a relatively new band. They started about 3 years ago, just before COVID. And they're a breakaway actually from another band called Rock This Country. 5 of the members decided to go on their own, and they were looking for a name, and I actually happened to be the one that named them. So I'm quite chuffed about that, you know.
How many bands are you going to have at this function?
2 bands. There's a backup, not backup, I would say, a band that is going to sort of fill in the gaps called Ebony, which is also a good band. They are also a relatively new band. They've been around about a year and a half. We had them for 31st night, and they were really, really good. And we got Corinne coming as well with the band, so...
And so you're going to rock the night away?
Of course, for sure.
What can they expect from this
night?
Well,
it's a fully catered function. We're going to have a sit-down meal, what we call a fusion these days.
That is Eastern and Western?
Western, correct, yeah. And, the beverages are all included in the hard beverages, so everybody can have any drink they want.
And when is this happening, Bertie?
It's on the 18th of Feb at the Princess Grand in Mulgrave. And we are targeting a crowd of about 350. We're pretty close to that now. There are a few more tickets left.
So it's at the Princess of Grand?
Yeah, Princess Grand is known as Princess Grand in Mulgrave. Yeah.
And on the 18th of February?
18th of Feb, that's correct.
Yeah. And celebrating Valentine's, so you've got to be there with your Valentine.
Of course.
And you've been doing this this is the 20th occasion you're doing this.
Correct, yes.
What really drives you with this entertainment?
It's something that I started 20 years ago, and I've been keeping it going. It's something different, you know. It's Valentine is always... I'm always number one to start off the calendar year with dances, so I like to keep that tradition going.
So that's you're talking about the New Year's Eve dance?
Yeah, after the New Year's Eve, this is the first dance for the new year. It's the Valentine's, you see. There's no other dances before that.
Okay.
Because everybody's still in holiday mode. So some have gone to Sri Lanka, some are coming back. So, yeah.
And so what are the other... are you going to plan for more functions coming on during the year?
Yeah, definitely. In May, there's a Misty Band coming through. So we got two functions in Melbourne, one in Adelaide, one in Sydney, one in Brisbane. Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. So
and in Melbourne, yeah.
Yeah, 2 in Melbourne.
2 in Melbourne.
Yep.
Jeez, looking forward to that one, Bertie.
Yeah, I know.
So you will give us more details of that one.
I'll come back again and we'll get that on the program as well. Yeah.
And if people want tickets, and how do they get information about this function?
They can call me or call Isaac Jackson. He's on the card as well for tickets. So yeah.
And Frank.
Yeah, my brother Frank is also there. Yeah.
Fantastic. So everybody, 18th of February, Grand and Princess, correct? Valentine night.
Yeah.
Don't miss it.
Yeah.
The bands Ebony, Redeemer, and most of all, Corinne's there as well.
Yeah.
So, you want to add anything to that, Bertie?
No, not really. Just, I hope people will take this on board and come and listen to this band, because they are a really, really good band. People who have gone to Sri Lanka have heard them, but the people who haven't should come and listen to them.
That's it to you guys. Make sure you're there, 18th February, Valentine's night, at the Grand and Princess, run by Mr. Bertie Ekanaika. Be there.
If you check your